Independence. What comes to your mind when you hear this word? Freedom to make your own choices, carve out your own path, and live authentically without the weight of outside pressures. Autonomy to pursue truly what matters to you, whether in life, career, or personal growth. Self reliance, having the strength to stand tall, the courage to face uncertainty, and resilience to push through challenges. When I hear word independence, I think of courage to reinvent our lives and careers on our own terms. It's about finding our own voice amidst the noise, breaking free and living a life and pursuing a career that truly aligns with our passions and convictions. Independence in our careers means having confidence to step into the unknown, take risks, and make bold shifts that bring us closer to a life and work that resonate deeply with who we are. Good evening, friends. Hello, and welcome to episode 13 of Career Shifts podcast. I'm your host, Gopal, and I'm thrilled to have you all tuning in to this episode. Wishing you all a very happy Independence Day. For those who have been here with us before, you already know this, but for those who are joining us for the first time, Career Shifts is a podcast where we explore the journeys of people who have successfully navigated significant career transitions. Before we dive into today's episode, as always, I want to continue our tradition of starting the show with a story. A few days ago, I was speaking to a group of HR leaders. We were discussing our career backgrounds, and I noticed something very interesting. Except for me, most of them had started their journeys in engineering before moving into HR. While some pursued an MBA to transition into HR roles, others simply made career choices and grew up into the leadership positions within HR. As a commerce graduate, I loved marketing and HR, but as you know, accountancy is the main subject in a commerce degree. I wouldn't say I hated accounting and finance, but I didn't have a true passion for it either. I did reasonably well in most of the accounting subjects, but I had lost touch with concepts like accounts, balance sheets, P&L, because that was not something that I needed to do my role. As I continued to climb up my corporate career, certain aspects of finance became integral. And during one such transition, I virtually met Sangeeta in 2021. She was running a workshop for financial management, and it came at a crucial time in my career as I was transitioning from HR role to a larger strategic and operational role. One of the things I loved about the workshop was Sangeeta's style of making finance an incredibly interesting subject. She's truly a master storyteller. When we connected, we discussed how she managed to find time to write, her writing process, inspiration behind the stories that she writes extensively on LinkedIn and even her books. It was fascinating to hear how she developed her ideas, and it gave me deeper appreciation for the craft of storytelling. Her books, What the Finance, Get High on Finance, Where's the Moolah are national bestsellers. They're fantastic management books that you can read multiple times. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with someone who embodies resilience, transformation, and empowerment. When I invited Sangeeta to the podcast, she said, I'll be more than happy to come, Gopal. So without further ado, let's welcome Sangeeta to the show. Hi, Sangeeta. How are you doing?
Good, Gopal. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be featured in the Career Shifts podcast with you. So I'm really looking forward and excited about this today.
Wonderful, wonderful. Before we start, do you have any opening thoughts that you want to share with the audience?
Yes, so I think it's a great platform that you've started because I know so many people are actually looking at alternate careers. Somebody like me, for instance, I had never thought that I would probably be doing something like what I'm doing right now. So I think it's a great thing that you've started for people to explore and get to know, to see what they need to do, and getting a lot of different industry leaders to share their thoughts. I think that's really amazing. So kudos to you for doing this.
Thank you so much. And I think it came in with a view of giving it back to the society and the community, rather, on LinkedIn, where I used to get a lot of questions, and I continue to do that even now, about
Right.
what to do in our careers. And it's coming at a time when a lot of shifts are happening in the way employment is happening, jobs are being done, and probably people are not finding as much opportunities as they would have wanted to. So thank you for coming into the show. You have an
Most
interesting and an exciting career that I would love to know more about, and of course the audience would love to hear about as well. So the first question that I have for you, Sangeeta, is you've had a very fascinating career journey from a CFO to a business leadership coach. What inspired this shift, and how did you navigate through this transition?
okay. So to be honest, I was probably as lost as most people. I didn't know where I was headed, what I wanted to do. Of course, I had a very good corporate career, corporate job. But at some point in time, I just felt like, can I do something more? Right. And my thought was this, if I can contribute to the success of one organization, how can I scale myself? And I
Sure.
had this thought probably like 10, 12 years ago, and I didn't have an answer for it at that time. So I was quite lost. And then I used to reflect and ask myself, like, what is my purpose? Like, what am I supposed to do? Just be in the corporate and keep working? What exactly do I have to do? And I was completely lost. I didn't have an answer. And then,
Mm.
park this aside, I'm an accidental author. I'll tell you more about it, when we discuss my author journey. But I'm an accidental
Yeah.
author. And this thought of, what can I do was kind of eating my head. And I didn't have an answer for quite some time. And it was at that point in time that I chanced upon coaching. And at that time, I wasn't sure. I didn't know who a coach was, what a coach does. I didn't have the clarity at all. And I, again, like, out of curiosity, I said, okay, let me just explore, what this is. It seems quite intriguing. And, I just went and explored. So even when I started my coaching journey, I was not sure that I didn't know that I would probably be a full-time coach at a later point in life. So it was like a blind date. I just went ahead, trusted my gut feel, and then, went for it. And I was pretty happy, in the sense, because I felt it aligned with my purpose, my values, and what I really wanted to do. And that's when I started thinking, I said, what if I can blend my finance background, my leadership experience, and my coaching skills? And I said, that's when I can really add value to the people, the leaders I want to work with. So, but this dawned on me much later, right? So it didn't happen
Mm.
overnight. It took me quite some time. So I would always tell people, give yourself the time, like, let it, give yourself the period of gestation, because that's when even you get better clarity. And then finally, I was able to define, what I wanted to do. So I said, I work with corporate leaders and teams to maximize their potential, performance, and profits. So, it took me
Wow.
quite some time to arrive at and, define what really I want to do, who I want to work with, what is the value I can add, and stuff like that. So it does take a while. So, many times when people ask me, it's like, what do I do? And, how do I get started on my journey? I always tell them, I said, give yourself that time. You can't expect to have a baby overnight. It needs that 9 months or whatever, right? So give yourself the time. And that's when you would know, and you yourself will start getting a lot more clarity on what exactly you want to do. So that is what I thought I should share with uh, people who are looking at taking up different things.
Yeah. I think you're bringing in a very interesting aspect, which is you need to give yourself time. And you personally, when you're going through this, you did not really plan for it per se, but you had a fair idea of what you wanted to do, uh, and kind of went with the flow. Unfortunately, we're going through a situation where blame it on many factors. One could be the fact that we want everything pretty quickly, um,
Instant gratification.
like instant gratification, 10-minute deliveries, etc. Right?
Yes.
uh, and people think that we need to get it right at the first go, or probably even get it right immediately. I don't have time to, my monthly balances are depleting, and I need to find a way to make it happen. Um, so you find typically two kind of people: one who plan for it, make a choice that I want to go solo, I want to be independent, and you find the other set of people who kind of get into this probably by force, or get pushed into it because of their because of the
Circumstances.
current job market situation, circumstances, etc. Um, what would you share? I mean, what would you like to share to such people on? Is there a step by step guide, if I can ask you, that you have, or you could share of your reflections on
Right.
what does that first 6 month look like? What kind of thoughts and feelings comes into your mind, and how did, who told you it's okay to feel this way? And yeah, of course, if there is anything that you would like to add, would be very
Sure,
valuable
sure.
for the listeners. Yeah.
Sure, that's a host of questions. So, like, let me start off with
Yeah.
how I started. How I went about it, and then people can craft their path accordingly.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, when I wanted to take this, it was not like I took a blind leap of faith, right? So for about, I think, 3-4 years, firstly, I wanted to be sure, like, this is what I really want to do.
Hmm.
And so what I did was I was kind of doing both parallelly. So I had a full-time CFO role, and then over weekends and after hours is when I used to practice my coaching skills, right? So I gave myself some time. Firstly, I gave myself quite a long rope to be sure this is what I really want to do. Is it something I enjoy? Is it aligning with my purpose, my values, and what I can really offer to my clients, right? So first I wanted to get comfort on that. So once I got the comfort on that, I wanted to be mentally prepared, because the corporate
Hmm.
spoils you rotten, right? So I wanted to be mentally prepared, because I found myself, telling multiple number of times, what, I will do it one day, but that one day wasn't happening, right? So I think, yeah, I was probably quite uh, scared. I had some bit of fear. I had bit of reluctance and hesitance. How will it go? Uh, how will I feel? Will it be okay? And I did have a lot of such phobias in me. So I worked a lot on myself mentally, because I think uh, once you're prepared for a shift and a change like this mentally, that's what makes you stronger. Otherwise, you're just going to be lost. And then I was also asking myself and reflecting on to see what can be the potential pitfalls, and what can be like a backup and stuff like that. Then another important thing for people looking to go independent, what I would say, is to be financially prepared. So what do I mean by that? See, in a corporate, every month, that you're going to get X amount of salary credited into your
Yeah.
account, right? Now, when you're independent, obviously there's a lot of uncertainty. You don't know how many clients are going to sign up. You don't know when they're going to pay, and, a lot of such challenges. So it's important for you to have sufficient amount of bank balance. So depending on what you want to do, and whether you have a set client or, whatever, I would recommend that you set aside X amount. That could be like for 6 months or 1 year, whatever the long period that you're planning to give yourself, like a gestation period for the business to actually start ticking and taking off. Set aside that money, because then you know that you're going to be financially comfortable, right? Because even if the business doesn't take off immediately, or even probably you may even have to incur losses depending on what you're actually starting. If you have a team, and if you want to invest in some sort of technology or whatever it is, you probably have to put in that money up front. So be prepared for all of this from a financial perspective, is what I would want to say. And thereafter, take off. They give it to your 100% or even more than 100%. Go ahead, seek help. Do not hesitate. Like, in my case, initially, I used to hesitate to tell people, what I was doing, what I could really add value to them, all those, the marketing part of it, right? Because I was never used to doing any sort of business development or sales and marketing. So that was a big block for me. So be prepared and go all out to see what it actually takes to go and, speak up and speak about your work, and, just go all out and see what you can do to make your business grow, is what I would have to share here.
Wonderful. I think what you just shared is very much in common with a lot of our past,
Right.
speakers as well. And
Awesome.
unfortunately, in the world that we live, we don't teach people how to be entrepreneurs. This is something that we have discovered time and again through most of the
Yes.
conversations. And you brought in a very important aspect of, you know, not having done business development, not having done sales, and you have to
Yes.
really go out and fetch your own business. How was the first 6 months to 12 months for you? When did the
Um,
first check come in?
Well, the first check did come in initially, but obviously, you're used to a corporate job and it doesn't equal. So, definitely it feels low.
Hmm.
So that is
Hmm.
something, like I said, you have to be prepared and work on yourself mentally, because you're always used to getting, an X amount, and then you feel, hey, what is this? Is a lot lesser. So that
Yeah.
does happen. And I have also noticed that, there have been a lot of cycles, like, some months it's really good and some months is not so good as well. So you need to be prepared, and, that's when you need to plan from a financial perspective as well. So those are little aspects that one needs to take care. So it does take some time for the business to actually pick up and keep going. So it's important that one doesn't lose hope. So if you're prepared again, from a mental perspective, I think that helps.
Sure. Um, I have a follow up question on that. But before we get to that, I just would like to welcome all the guests. Unfortunately, I'm not able to see some of the comments that are coming in on LinkedIn, and I have the app open in front of me, but they don't come. I mean, the comments don't seem to be coming into
Oh,
the
okay.
app, except one. So Anshuman says, "Good to see another episode." Swarnalata says, "Interesting topic and discussion." Karthik has written good stuff, very practical view.
Thank you.
Sangeeta, so thank you. And viewers listening in, please feel free to drop your thoughts, comments, questions for Sangeeta, and we would be more than happy to take them during the course of the conversation as well.
Absolutely. Yes.
Uh, so the follow-up question that I had on that was,
Right.
today is Independence Day, and
Yes.
you just touched upon a very important aspect that helped you to be independent, of course, and also financially independent. Um,
Yes.
a lot of times when you talk about this to generally quite a few people, we do have certain amount of assets and liabilities, if you were to put it into those simple terms, and sometimes liabilities are slightly higher given the home
Yes.
loan and other other emis that you have to pay.
Yes.
What is a general yardstick that you would like to give to the audience as to how should they plan their finances and how could they work towards their financial independence? Now, this could be a question that could be very valuable to anyone listening in, not just people who are in their mid careers, but even someone who's starting their career.
Right.
And we are in the market where also inflation is quite high. So, any thoughts on that that you would like to share?
Yes, definitely. So what I would like to share here is the thumb rule, I would say, uh, go by this principle. And I think that's a very great principle. So what is that? It is to say that you save first and then spend,
Hmm.
right? Because
Hmm.
we are human, and, with so many attractive things around us, you like, I want to get this, I want to get the latest version of a mobile, or, whatever that is. So it's very easy for us to get carried away. And with these marketing and advertisements, it's really, really very tempting. So if you want to
Yeah.
resist that, what I would suggest is every month, when you know that you're going to get X amount of salary, or whatever your business income, whatever, you could either set aside a particular fixed amount each month, or a fixed percentage, right? It could be whatever, 25%, 30%, whatever that is comfortable for you. First, put that aside into a whatever savings that you want to do, any sort of investments that you want to do. So you know that you are financially secure, to that extent. And then the balance, after your EMIs and whatever your necessary living expenses and everything else, whatever is the balance, you go ahead and splurge that, right? So that is important. I have found that many people do it otherwise. They go spend whatever, and then whatever balance is left, they go and save it. So I think it should be the other way around. So save first and then spend. So that is the first thing I would like uh, people looking for, better financial management of their personal finances. That's what I would like to tell them. The second thing I would like to tell them is, don't put all your eggs in the same basket, right? So whatever are
Yeah.
the savings and the investments, see how much you could diversify. It can be in the stock market, it can be into mutual funds, it can be into land, it can be into property, gold, whatever it is, right? So just see you diversify and then take a financially prudent call, right? So that's something I would like to tell. And the third important thing I'd like to share is know the difference between appreciating assets and a depreciating asset, right? Because many times I've noticed people telling, oh, I have got this, the latest technology gadget or whatever, that's great. But you should remember that these are all depreciating assets, right? So know the difference, because don't it's like even a car, for instance, right? You buy a new car today, and let's say after 2 months, for whatever reasons you want to sell it, are you going to get the same price? No. Right? That's because of the depreciation that kicks in, right? So
Yeah.
similarly, for all your other gadgets and stuff like that, so just be mentally aware and cognizant of the fact that whether you're investing into an appreciating asset or a depreciating asset. So once you start thinking on those lines, it gives you better clarity, and I think that opens up doors to better financial prudence. So that's what I wanted to share, the top 3 things for better financial management of your personal finances.
Wonderful. I was interestingly having a conversation with my colleague, and one of the things that he was saying was, I'm planning to buy another house. Um, I was, pretty much tempted to do that at some point of time in my career. I already have a house, but I said, okay, let's invest in
Sure.
a real estate property. And when I had this thought, I had spoken to a couple of financial gurus, and they advised me against that. And why did they advise me against that was purely from a perspective that if you're staying in a house, of course, it becomes your asset. But if you're adding another property to, which is a flat, an apartment rather, then it's going to be a depreciating asset as well, because you'll always have more reality, builders coming in with new age, new tech, sustainable living options to kind of play into the minds of people, which is all great. I mean, I think it's good for them, but purely from an inflation perspective, purely from a perspective of whether you would make the same money had you put the same money into, let's say, an equity or a stock, the comparison just isn't there. And it was interesting, and it was interesting when he said that a flat is a depreciating asset, and not an appreciating asset. Instead, you should invest into a plot and build your own home if you want to. So I think, thank you for sharing those valuable inputs. I'm sure a lot of people are going to find value in this. A question that I can see on LinkedIn is from Swarnalata. How do you balance both your personal and coaching goals, as I'm doing so? So I use this. They say you're getting very busy with your stuff, even though we are doing it on weekends and after work. So how do you handle the situation?
Okay, so I don't handle it right now, but yes, I used to handle it. So obviously, I wasn't taking up more than I could chew, right? So I was just working with few people, few clients, and I think once you take charge of your time, I think you are probably in better control, is what I would want to say. So plan your day accordingly and prioritize what's more important, and navigate your way through. So there's no one fixed answer for that. But I think once you take charge of your time, I think that opens up a lot of avenues.
Yeah, yeah. Do you have any tips or thoughts on how should one go and take charge of their time? Because I think that's one thing that probably is a
Yes,
challenge for people across generations.
absolutely, absolutely.
How to go
Yes.
about that? Yeah.
So, in fact, I have spoken about this and given some templates as well in my book, Get High: How to Coach Yourself for High Performance in Your Work. So, nonetheless, let me share it here as well. So, what I say is it's
Sure.
all a matter of prioritization, right? So, you prioritize what is important first. And then the rest of the things can add in. If you think like, I need to go and watch the latest movie, and you prioritize that over other things, then obviously you're not going to
Yeah.
have time for what is really important and meaningful. So make a list of what are the things that you need to do, and then prioritize them. So once you prioritize, you fit in the ones that are most important and most crucial. So then the rest of the things will automatically find time for itself, and then you'll be able to slot in the important ones. And I would also recommend that, people follow the Eisenhower matrix as well.
Sure.
Urgent
Sure.
and important. Yeah.
Sure. For people who don't know what it is, please feel free to search it on Google. I will try and put in a link post this session if I'm able to.
Yes. So it's, basically what is urgent and what is important, and what is not urgent and what is not important. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. One question that I see from Neil Kamal is, in today's era, if one stays long in the organization, people see it as incompetent and incapable. Where where in-person perspective, the job allows him to use strength to excel in the same organization. How do you see this as a business coach?
So I think, see, these are perspectives, right? So everything, I believe, has its pros and cons. It all depends on how you're portraying yourself. What is the value that you're adding? Are you just stagnating in the same role and doing the same things over the last whatever X number of years? Then yes, probably it may be perceived the way that you're saying. However, if you're adding value, if you're taking up newer challenges, if you're actually bringing in the required results, people may look at it differently. So it really boils down to the kind of work that you're doing, the quality, and the value that you're bringing, contributing to the organization, is what I would say.
Sure. Sunil Kumar says, hi Sunil. Sriram, another good friend, a dear friend, says, good discussion, some great tips. Thank you, Sriram, for joining in. Moving on to the next question that I have. Now, you've been a coach for, I think, about more than 5-7 years now, right, Sangeeta?
That's right.
And you have kind of worked with a lot of leaders, who have a very unique perspective to lead their organizations, but also have their own vulnerabilities. In your view, what do you think are some of the traits that you believe a typical leader should possess in times like these when we are living in?
Right. Okay, that's a great question. So I have a slightly different take to it, and let me back it up with my personal example as well, right? So during my corporate career, I used to have, obviously people reporting into me, and let me, share about two different people, all right? So one of them was extremely competent, and, if I had to deliver, if I needed him to deliver a particular task, if I would just tell him and, ask for, let's say, a particular report to be delivered by a particular day and time, I know I would get it on time, right? So I don't even have to follow up. If I, say like,
Sure.
tomorrow 2 p.m. I need it, I know I will get that report. The other hand, the other person, right, the same strategy wouldn't work. I'll have to keep checking, and then say like, hey, is this work completed? Probably after 2-3 follow-ups, I know I will get it at my required time. Now, in case I didn't do the follow-up, let's say I want the report tomorrow at 2 p.m., I would probably get it, the day after, or, late in the evening tomorrow. Now, whereas if I follow up with the first person, I know he would get annoyed, and, he wouldn't like me following. Like, you've already told me, so why do you want me to keep checking on me? I know I will deliver it, right? So you see, a strategy that a leader has to adopt, I believe, needs to be very adaptive, depending on what really works well with each individual. While a leader may say, my one down has to adapt his or her style according to my style of working, I believe it's the other way. Because a leader is the one who's in control, who's in charge, who wants stuff, the delivered, get things done by the team, right? So in that case, a leader needs to adopt an adaptive style of working, is my thought process. So see what works well for each individual. Each one is made differently and wired differently, and only thing that you can control is the way you behave and how you get your things done. You can't really overly go and control things of your team members, because then you're not a leader, you become a boss, right? So therefore it's important that, in my perspective, that you must be in a position to adapt your leadership style, behavior, and ultimate objective is, we win as a team, and thereby the organization wins. So are you able to put the goals of the organization, the goals of the team ahead of your personal stuff, and put aside the ego, and then go ahead and get what you want, so that everybody wins together? So I think that is something that's important, what I would like to share. And therefore adaptive leadership style is something important, is what I want to share.
Wonderful. I think it is true in today's times as well, with so much of volatility around how things are evolving, and it's always a debate as to what kind of leader should one be. So thank you for sharing that.
Most welcome.
Sangeeta, you have almost about 2.5 decade of career, and you
It's
have
close to three now.
been close to three now, and you have kind of played both the role as an employee and now as a founder, entrepreneur, coach. Um, which of these would you consider as one of the most challenging ones? And do you have any, thoughts or perspectives that you would like to share on how you overcame one of the challenging situations in that career?
Right. Okay. So I think every role a person plays has its own set of challenges, right? You can be an employee, you have a challenge. You can be the CEO, you have a challenge, right? So I mean, there's
Right.
nothing like a bed of roses and without challenges. And if that's the
Sure.
case, I'm sure we all would lose interest in what we're doing. So it's always good to have some set of challenges. And I think the thrill or the get high moment is when you overcome the challenges successfully, right? So that is what
Yeah.
I want to say. But since you asked me, I mean, I think I'd like to talk about common challenge at the workplace, and especially in a corporate career, is I think a lot of insecurity, right?
Hmm.
It can be in different forms and at different levels. So one such example that I would probably like to share, and what I have noticed even with a lot of clients whom I coach now, is the insecurity that not only the person has, but it also translates to insecurity of the boss, insecurity of the peers, right? So it can be at different levels and different forms
Yeah.
as well. So in one instance that actually comes to my mind in my corporate career is uh, it was one very simple thing. I knew that particular boss of mine had a lot of insecurity with me, and once we had a discussion, and it was a very very simple discussion. We were talking about the cash flow issues. So I had
Hmm.
prepared the cash flow, and then the projected cash flow said it was going to be a negative cash flow. Now, as we discussed this over the phone, my boss said, no, this is not a negative cash flow, it's going to be a positive cash flow. Now, I was sure of my numbers, and then I tried explaining to him to say, listen, no, this is negative, because it's obvious, and because of the insecurity, and obviously we didn't have a great rapport as well. And he was like, no, this is a positive cash flow. And then I realized at one point there was no point in arguing on this, because his had a very fixed mindset on that. So I said, okay. This is a positive cash flow. And then I hung up. As soon as we hung up, what I did was I just sent him an email. And in that email, I said, as per my calculation, this is what it is at a high level. And I'm getting a negative cash flow. So based on our discussions, please confirm if this is negative or positive. So I just kind of put it back to him. Now, obviously,
Hmm.
when he saw the email, which he didn't expect, and then, he had to give in because I was factually right. So then he
Correct.
was like, yeah, apologies. Yes, this is a negative cash flow. And then we'll see what needs to be done to work around it. So my lessons, or my takeaways from this small incident was, I realized that especially if the boss tends to feel insecure, you get picked for everything that you do, whether it may be right or wrong or whatever, you get picked, right? So in order to safeguard your own interest, I think it's wise to document it and keep, not playing a blame game or anything, but just to lay things as it is, so that in your interest it doesn't backfire on you at a later date. So that is one very important thing. Also, what I've realized during the course of my corporate journey is your ethics your values and your principles are much greater than the need to align with your boss, right? So it depends on what you are, what you stand for. The boss may think otherwise, but if you feel that, from an ethical perspective or from your values or your principles that are dear to you, if it is not in alignment, go ahead, call it the shots. Do not be a chicken at that moment, is what I wanted to share. And most importantly, the third important thing I want to say is, let your work speak for itself, right? Because people will always say different things. You're not here to please everybody, right? So whatever you think is right, and just go ahead and just follow that. So let your work speak for itself, rather than you having to go and justify why you're doing what you're doing to your bosses. So those are three things I thought I would share along today.
I think very inspiring, Sangeeta. I think what you're sharing is um, a thing which a lot of people struggle with. Struggle because they can't just open up their thoughts and share things candidly as you did. And this also happens to be challenged with both genders, but more so also with women, unfortunately. And what tips or suggestions or advice that you would like to give them on how should they get the confidence and the courage to be able to speak up for themselves, because this is something that is a big challenge for a lot of people, and they end up sabotaging their careers because of this.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. So let me share one interesting tidbit what one of my mentors in the early start of my career told me. So there was some particular challenge, and I didn't know how to go about it. It was quite at the start of my career. So I actually approached, I think, somebody who was 2 or 3 levels above me in the career chain. And so
Hmm.
I just had a candid conversation with that person, and then said, who was very, very senior. And then I said, how do I go about this particular challenge? So one thing that he told me was, which is really stuck onto me, he said, if I were going to throw a boiling hot potato at you, right? Imagine I'm throwing a boiling hot potato at you. Your reflex would be to hold it. But are you going to keep holding on to it? Your hands are going to get burnt, right? So obviously you would then want to, throw it to the next
Put it
person, or put
down.
it down, or, find a solution to it, rather than just holding on to it,
Yeah.
because you're going to get
Yeah.
burnt. And that
Yeah.
has advice is really stuck on to me, because if you're holding on to something like this, you're going to get burnt out, and the best in you is not going to come out.
Wow.
And therefore, you need to see what actions you can take. Either it be speaking up, putting it on an email, or what corrective actions that need to be taken to find the best solution to the particular challenge that you're having. So it's in your own interest. So you need to look at it from a long-term perspective and not just for the short term. So once I think you have awareness on such things, you probably are automatically driven to take in actions on such things.
Wonderfully said. I think I'm going to ask you a question on mentors, but before we get to that, let's take a couple of comments and questions that have come in. Sunil Kumar Singh asks, with so many coaches and trainers available, how can I confidently determine which one is genuinely the best fit for my needs and goals?
Right, right. That's a
A
great
question
question.
that every coach gets asked.
Yes, so I have in fact elaborated on this in my book, Get High, How to Coach Yourself for High Performance. The book is available on Amazon, hard and soft copy as well. But since you've asked, I think what comes to my mind is, firstly, see the comfort level with the coach, right? Are you able to relate to what the coach says? Do you have a good chemistry going on? And, is it like you feel comfortable, psychologically safe to open up and share what you want with the coach? That is the first filter I would urge you to look upon. And then I think you should look for the testimonials of the coach, what sort of clients they have and what sort of results they have produced. And probably you could even do a general check on their career, or probably even Google about the coach and see what are the different things, and whether go by your gut feel, whether you think they will be really able to add value and bring about the transformation that you're looking for.
Wonderful.
At a high level, yes,
Hope.
these are things I would
Yeah.
urge you to look on.
Thank you, Sunil. I hope that answers your question. Otherwise, we are happy to, take on follow up on that. I think this is a question from Rakesh Singh. My question is, what would you suggest to an individual who is continuing with her job, part time, full time, to meet financial commitment, along with work on coaching his business initiative he needs to exit from job and work full time on this initiative? I mean, basically, he's asking, should one quit the job and take this full time, or should he dabble uh, between the two? I think that's a personal choice, but any thoughts that you have?
Yes, absolutely. So you said it right. It's your personal choice. It really depends on what the situation warrants for you. So if you have a good pipeline of clients, then go ahead, take this full time. You probably may not need the part time, but if you think it's wise to have the part time as well, and and if you're able to balance the two, why not? I mean, you can definitely go ahead and indulge in both.
Wonderful. We're shifting gears now in terms of a very important aspect of any individual's career, which
Hmm.
is mentorship. And you spoke about the
Okay.
mentor and the advice that he gave to
Yes.
you.
Yes. That's
Um,
right.
what do you think is a role of a mentor in anyone's career? I often get asked, do you need only one or many? And, you know, do you want to share anything about your mentor with us today?
Sure. So I have had couple of mentors. Now, one thing which I would urge, especially the younger generation, like, to be honest, most of my career, right, majority of my career, I didn't know a concept of mentor. I didn't know the importance of having a mentor. While I was blessed with few people, like, the example that I gave you, few people who came along, at crucial times in my career and, shared some words of wisdom for me, which was really stuck on and has helped me. I actually started working with mentors and started looking upon some seniors as mentors much later in my career. So one of them being like a mentor for my independent directorship, right? So it's Mr. Balram Pons Balraman, as he's commonly known as, and he's been a great mentor to me, and he's really guided my independent directorship journey. Right, that's how I had got started. That's been a great learning along with him. So for each and everything, you know area that you want to focus on, I would think it's good to have mentors, because mentors are people who've been there, done that, and
Mm,
they're happy to share their learnings and journey with you. And it's up to you to see what you want to take out of their journey. So it's important that you approach them, ask them the questions, get the required clarifications that you want from mentors, and get the best out of them, so that I believe everybody doesn't have to do the same mistakes, right? So you
correct.
piggyback on their wisdom, their learnings, their journey, and then you decide what is right and what is best for you. So that's what I want to share about mentors.
Wonderful. And I agree. I mean, I think even in my journey so far, I have had many, in fact, more than 10 mentors throughout my career. Of course, not all 10 together, but at
Sure.
every important stage of your career, um, you probably tap into expertise based on what they have done in their careers, and try to align that to how they can help you. And
Yes.
yeah, you and I have had conversations about how I could do a couple of my roles in the past or even current differently. So I think that's a given, and I think it's important to explore that instead of doing the mistakes all yourself.
Absolutely.
So
Yes.
you mentioned a very important aspect of your journey as an independent director. That's something that a lot of people ask questions on.
Yes.
You get a lot of marketing emails about the numbers of independent directors are going to, I mean, India is going to need, or the world is going to need, and a lot of fancy courses that are available that people can do. Honestly, if you can break down the need for independent directors, the path to independent directors, I think it would be really helpful for a lot of people listening in to know and make an informed decision.
Yes, absolutely right. So, in fact, you're bang on in saying, a lot of people have been asking me as well. So, I have been an independent director for almost 10 years now. So, much before this boom about Indian independent directors came about, I have been an independent director.
Hmm.
Uh, so, one thing, rather like couple of things that I can tell you out of my experience is, yes, there's going to be a need, most probably, but people are not going to get you on board as an independent director just because you have a certification or whether you have done a particular course. It boils
Hmm.
down to the fact that what is the value that you're going to add to the organization? What is your specialization? What is your niche, that can really contribute to the organization? So the certification is more a byproduct. Now, if let's say I'm running a company, and then I think Gopal has the necessary skill set to add value to my organization, then I would approach Gopal and say, hey Gopal, why don't you come on board as an independent director? And then if you're interested, that's when you start looking at these certification other things, because you need to be well equipped. And I feel it's more uh, secondary step that needs to go. So primary is your specialization. Now nobody is going to
Sure.
take you on board just because you have a certification. Remember that very clearly.
Sure.
That's the first thing I want to share. The second important thing is, even if you have the niche, even if you think you're going to add value, and even if you have the certification in place, one very, very important thing that you need to have in mind is that as an independent director, you become personally liable for any sort of mishaps the company does. And that's not something very pleasant, right? So,
Hmm.
therefore, one needs to do a lot of due diligence before taking up the role. Because remember, as an independent director, you're not involved in the day to day operations of the company, right?
Hmm.
So, therefore, get in, do a lot of due diligence, see, if you can truly value add, whether you think you get along with the management, the founders, the promoters, whoever is running the company, whether, they are aligned in the thought process with you. Do they really want you on board, or, it's just a tick of the box that they want to have you? And ask a lot
It
of these
happens quite a
difficult
bit.
questions. Yes, yes.
Yeah.
So, in fact, I mean, over the last 10 years, I have been approached by many different organizations who wanted me as an independent director on their boards. And of course, while it all seems hunky dory, the reality may not be so. So, I have actually rejected quite a few of them, because when I do my due diligence, I wasn't completely satisfied, and I just felt, it is probably not so safe. So, I have been very picky and choosy. And I would urge you to apply your prudence before you take up anything, right? So do your due diligence. I'm not saying everything is bad, but then you need to be sure and trust your gut feel, right? And see whether you can really value add, and whether you can work along with the management team of the company that you're looking at. So those are, don't just go by the prestige or the status, because in reality there is nothing so fancy about being an independent director. Well, while yeah, I
Right.
mean, it's good to be, but get to know the reality before you join is what I want to share.
Yeah, I have a follow-up question on that, and I think it's very important that we kind of slightly dig deeper into the two elements that you spoke just now. One
Right.
is doing the due diligence. Second is, of course, you're personally liable. Now, when you
Yes.
say these two words, it of course may raise alarms in a lot of people's mind, and people may or may not make informed choices unless and until they
Yes.
heard this from you.
Yes. Yeah.
What does this look like? What does personally liable mean? What could that impact, if at all, if you can share some examples? And when you say doing due diligence, how should one go about it? If you can share a little bit more on this, that would
Sure.
really help.
Sure. So due diligence is basically, getting to check from your industry peers, or whichever industry the particular company is in. Just talk to as many different people as you can, and get their inside perspective. It can be the employees, it can be the other board directors, it can be the former board of directors, it can be people associated with the industry, it can be the auditors, right? So you could just
Hmm.
go around talking to people, ask the right sort of questions to see, how comfortable, what they think, and, what are the actions, what are the challenges, what do they see, and, and then map it with what is there for you. And most importantly, if you can get to see a bit of their financial statements, and, if you're a finance professional, I would urge you to look at that as well. So look through that, and then ask yourself hard questions like, how do you think you'll be able to add value to them? Why do they want you on their board? Right? And what is it? Is there any ulterior motive? Is it just a fancy thing? Or, just run through a whole lot of questions like this from a due diligence perspective. And of course, you could even Google and, check, do as many different checks as possible that you can. Internal auditors, external auditors, different people, right? So that is on the due diligence. And on the personal liability, I think there are enough and more cases one can just Google on and see. And I don't want to name anything in particular, but if you Google, you will definitely find a lot of them. And when I say you're personally liable, it could be in worst cases like your assets could get locked down, or, if it's a larger thing, you're probably even forbidden to travel out of the country, different. It can get quite messy. So it's also, important. One other tip I would like to share is see if the companies have taken some amount of insurance for independent directors. Your it's called, I think, DNO, directors. I forget the full form of it now, but basically they can cover a little bit of it. May not be 100% because it depends on the volume and everything. But yeah, so just be safe. So that's where I feel, the corporate governance, the ethics, the integrity of the management plays a key role. And that's why I keep saying that, whether it aligns with what you stand for or not. So it's always better to be safe than sorry.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Thank you so much for that. And I think there are a couple of questions that have come in. Sudipto Saha asks, as a finance professional, do you often see your advisory and leadership interactions with clients being restricted only on the financial parameters?
So you see, each client's requirement is different, and it's very subjective. But from my experience, I don't think it's been restricted only to the financial perspective, financial parameters, like you said. While yes, that does play up in a lot of instances, but not necessary in everything, because a lot of my clients whom I've been coaching are CFOs, so they don't really need insights from a finance perspective. Probably a lot of them are looking at, how can I be a better leader, right? And probably some of them work with me from a strategy perspective, and it can be the finer aspects like, how can I get better in my communication? How can I manage my team better? How can I manage my time better, right? It can be a host of different things, and get my team to perform better. And how can I grow as a better leader? How can I grow my career into the next level? So these are some high level discussions that I have been having. And this is more for the CFO clients of mine that I've been working with. For the non-CFO clients as well, these are also, what I mentioned are some of the common challenges. And apart from that, yes, if they do need some insights from a financial perspective, yes, so that also does come in at times. So it really varies, I would say, person to person, level to level, organization to organization, industry to industry.
Wonderful. I think there is a lot that you have gathered as a coach about people in finance that you probably can write another book on, which probably is going to be something that we'll all see. I haven't read your recent one that you just mentioned a couple of times. I will probably go and pick that up. But
Sure.
Talking about writing,
Right.
how did that happen? Why did that happen, and how did that happen?
Okay. So I'm an accidental author. I never had plans to write a book. It was a family vacation to Cambodia in 2015. And strangely, it was a visit to the killing fields. So from 1970 to 74, there was a mass genocide in Cambodia. And it was very, very gruesome, brutal. And so when we visited the killing fields, even now, I mean, imagine after almost 50 plus years, you walk there, you'll find pieces of bones and nails. And those stories really did something to me. And, those visuals, those documentaries, there's a tower erected with the skulls of people, how they were killed, and women were raped, children were brutally murdered, gruesome. In a school playground, they were kept captive and the people were hung. And, it's really gory. So when I heard that, it really did something to me. And it probably left a deep thought in me. And that was, what happens if man is so cruel, especially with innocent people? Now, this particular thought stuck on to me for a very long time. And unknowingly, I had weaved the story in my head. And then there was a little voice in me that said, why don't you write about this? And, the initial thing is, oh, come on, I'm not an author. Who's going to read my book? And, I had all such thoughts coming in. And I had put away the thought of writing. But this story kept coming back to me time and again. And then since I was working full time, I think over weekends, I used to find little time. And I had just written just a little bit. And again, I didn't have time, and then I had lost it. Then luckily for me, I think after about 9 months after my trip, I chanced upon a book authoring challenge. And I think being in the corporate, we are so used to these challenges, time frames, deadlines, and targets. Yes, yes. So the moment I saw it, I said, yeah, this is what is going to help me to complete this book. So in 100 days, I had to bring the book out. And the good thing was there was a small community of other co-authors as well, who were each one of us working on our books. And Taich and I launched the book. So my first book was actually a spiritual thriller. And when the book came out, spiritual thriller, given the background of Cambodia, though the book has nothing to do with Cambodia, it talks about the cause and effect and, different other stuff. So it's a pretty interesting and fast read. And when I started telling people that, I have written this book, it's called A Glance at the Unknown, people were shocked. They said, come on, you're a finance professional, a CFO, a chartered accountant. Where's the finance book, right? So I still had a bit of, reluctance in writing finance book because I said there's so many finance books available, right? And I never took them seriously. And then a couple of months after I launched Glance at the Unknown, I was awarded as one of the 100 inspiring authors of India, something that I had never thought of, right? And that came about as a big boost and an encouragement. And at that point in time, quite a few of my friends and well-wishers were urging me to write the finance book. So that's how my second book, What the Finance, came into, right? And that talks about simple and easy practices. Because you see, normally when you say finance, people think, oh, it's boring, it's challenging, it's not my cup of tea. So I said, how can I make finance simple for people? And I didn't want to give gyan because there are enough and more books that give gyan on finance. So I wanted to make it something very simple. And that's when I realized that, my strength is to simplify things. So what I did, I made it very practical. So I said, if this is your problem, this is your solution, right? So this is how you can go about it. And to make it even more interesting, I interviewed quite a few of these successful entrepreneurs like Mr. Velumani from Thyrocare, Girish Matrabhutam of Freshworks, C.K. Kumaravel of Naturals, and quite a few others. And then I asked them about their financial journey. Like what were their learnings, what were the mistakes they made? And, so I made it a little more interesting and added in a lot more flavors to the book. And this book, again, it was something very unexpected, went on to becoming a national bestseller, which, I never anticipated. And in fact, I've been invited to a lot of conferences to speak about this book. And the book is doing very well even now, so I'm glad I, got over the reluctance of writing. So that was What the Finance. And that then led me to writing Get High, How to Coach Yourself for High Performance, because I used to give a lot of talks on high performance. And people started asking me, can I get some material and can I start reading? And then I also, since my journey as a coach had started, so I thought it'd be good to give some frameworks that people can follow and help them to get better at what they do. So that's how Get High came about. And Dr. Marshall Goldsmith, New York Times bestseller, and, he's a leading coach. So he was kind enough to give me the foreword for the book. And that book as well has been doing pretty well, I must say. And then came about my fourth book, which is Where's the Moolah? Moolah, is money. That book talks about financial growth hacking for business profitability. So that book, speaks about the business wheel and how if you want to grow your business, how business leader can actually pivot on each function of the business and see how they can grow the business, right? So that book as well, it has lots of ideas from different people. Some industry thought leaders have shared their wisdom and knowledge, and it also has some templates that one can follow to see how they can grow the business profitability. And all these books, both hard and soft copy, are available on all the online platforms, bookstores, and everywhere. So Amazon and Flipkart and many others.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you're anyone interested in reading any of these books, do go ahead, read them, and let me know how you liked it and how you benefited from it.
I've read a couple of them, and I have found them to be, and in fact, that's what drew me to the masterclass that you did, which was fantastic.
Awesome.
So definitely recommend all of you to read them. I'll leave the links on the chat. On the LinkedIn platform for all of you to pick that up from Amazon or any other platform. So now we can quickly move to rapid fire. So I'm going to quickly ask you a few questions, which we can take and then probably wrap the show.
Okay.
One word that describes you the best.
Enthusiastic.
Can't disagree. The book that has influenced you the most.
There are quite a few, but what comes to my mind right now is the $1 Trillion Coach, Bill Campbell.
Yes,
Bill Campbell, yeah, I think that's a great read, and it really touched a chord in me. And I wish Bill Campbell was alive, and I could have actually met him. That would have been great. But yeah, it gave me a lot more insights to see how one can really be a great coach. So that I was really impressed reading that. Yeah.
Wonderful. Favorite way to unwind after a long day?
I'm into meditation. I'm into art of living, and I think that's been a great game changer for me. A very good stress buster as well. So I'm a big time meditator. So I love my meditation, and also love going on long walks, time to self reflect and stuff like that. Yeah. So meditation and walks it is. Yeah.
Lovely, lovely. One habit you swear by for professional or personal success?
Discipline. I think being consistent with your discipline can do a lot of wonders. Consistency is something that I always keep speaking about, and it's really important, professional, personal, whatever. So you have to see how you can be disciplined in what you do.
True that, true that. I just wrote about that a couple of days ago
Oh, lovely.
on how it is important to be disciplined and be consistent and show up as much as you can. So
Super.
completely agree. Your comfort go-to food or go-to comfort
I
food?
have I have a big sweet tooth. So any sort of desserts, like it's like yay. Yeah.
Gulab jamun or Mysore pak?
Anything. It can even be a pastry.
Yeah.
All kinds. No
Good.
partiality, no bias.
No bias.
Yeah.
If you could have have the dinner with any historical figure, who would it be with and why?
Probably Swami Vivekananda, because I think at such a young age he has shared so many different interesting insights. So yeah, it would be him. Yeah.
Lovely, lovely. Thank you so much, Sangeeta, for joining us today. Before we wrap up, do you have any parting thoughts?
What I would like to tell people is rely a lot on your gut feel, right? And many times we tend to ignore our emotions, and probably tend to put it under the carpet many times. And even if it's a gut feel, we tend to say, oh, probably I'm just imagining things, and you don't want to really accept things. So I think it's important for you to take a pause, think, reflect. Is it truly imagining, or is it a little more than that? And pay attention to that. Don't neglect your emotions, because emotions play a very key role. And if you don't address your emotions properly, it could manifest into something not so pleasant in your body and even in the
Yeah.
mind. So take cognizance of that. So see what you can do, and see how you can get better at what you do. That would be the three things that I would like to share as my parting thought.
Perfect. Uh, I know you a lot more than what we just spoke in the last 1 hour. So I think there would be need for another couple of episodes if I were to really uncover
Happy to
the
share.
whole.
Yeah.
So we'll definitely plan for that in the next few months. But thank you for joining in. Really appreciate you taking the
Most welcome.
time
Most welcome. Hi.
on a holiday to come and do this. And thank you
Sure.
everyone for joining in and listening in as well. So, if I can quickly wrap up, to all of you who have joined us today and will listen later, thank you for tuning in to today's episode. I truly hope that Sangeeta's incredible journey and our insightful conversation have inspired you to rethink, reinvent, and take bold steps in your career. As Sangeeta emphasized, financial independence and leadership are vital in today's ever-changing world. It's not about being skilled at what you do, it's about having the courage to shift gears when necessary and wisdom to manage your career and finances in ways that aligns with your true aspirations that's going to count. Building a strong personal brand and developing a financial acumen are crucial components of this journey. We live in time where the landscape of work is rapidly evolving, something that I've emphasized every episode, and I'll continue to do that. And as many of my previous guests also have noted this, continuously honing your skills and embracing the art of storytelling are key to staying ahead. I look forward to seeing you all with yet another guest who has navigated an intriguing career path. Until then, stay inspired, stay curious, and keep following the Career Shifts podcast on LinkedIn, YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcast. See you all there. Keep shifting forward and upward. Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you so much, Gopal. I enjoyed being part of Career Shift podcast, and it was amazing interacting with you and the audience who were live. Thank you so much,
Thank you.
everyone, and keep rocking with what you do.
Yep. And wishing you all a very happy Independence Day again.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yes.
Thank you. Take care. Bye bye.
Best of career progress.